this gentleman has had a really profound impact on my life and our life. And as Christy shared before, when we went over to Vancouver and we hung out, Kameron George was actually staying at Elijah's house, and we got to hang out with him for, like, we were there for a couple of weeks, and just like lots of conversations. We saw him speak at the GAZ event, and just the way the guy held himself, and the way the wisdom that he had around business and his vision and the results that he had in business were nothing short of profound. So every conversation that we had, I was always like hanging on every word, and when I saw him speak, and then everyone was at the GAZ event was always like, we all owe it to this guy. Like, if it wasn't for him, none of us would be here. And when we were having a conversation, and I'm just super grateful that the guy came out. When I heard that Kameron George was coming out to speak at our event, I was like, whoa, that's epic, that's so cool, we're so blessed. And I was having a chat with him. I said, okay, cool, dude, I'm MC, like, how do you want me to introduce you? And he said, dude, I'm actually curious to see how you will introduce me. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, it's always interesting, my students, you know, I give them so much curriculum, I give them so much value, I educate them so much, and it's always this little thing that I've said, like, in a passing conversation when we're in a car or at a bar, and that's the thing that's had the most profound impact on their life. So I was like, well, what's that for me? And the big thing that I got from Cam is that the guy has the most amount of certainty out of anyone that I know. And he has the most certainty wins the game. And when I was reflecting back on that, what brought a lot of confidence to me is that, you know, I've seen Kameron, you know, he's been involved with GAZ, but he was always like a silent partner. And he was sort of behind the scenes guy who was like, you know, helping and guiding. But what I've seen now is that he's the front man. He's he's passionate, he's mission driven, he's flying all the way out here. Besides his, even though he has a really hectic schedule of everything that he's rolling out with AI, he's coming out here to serve you guys because he's on a mission. And so now he's like the man, and he's in there, and he's in the trenches, and I've never seen him so jacked up and excited about something. And what really helped me to feel so confident in what we're doing is that he has so much certainty about what he's doing, and from conversations I've had with everyone else, is like everything that he touches turns to gold. So what do you think is going to happen with the Affiliate Institute? It's gold. So super grateful to have him here, super grateful that he's leading the ship, and we're going to play a short video, and then we're going to welcome him onto the stage.
Have you ever thought about that moment? That moment when it started?
4 cross. Then you can call us.
The moment that separated the old from the new. The moment that separated the good from the great. Every great business, every great relationship, every great idea started in a single moment. Maybe it started with a bang. Maybe nobody heard it but that one believer who felt it and knew that everything would be different.
When everybody's doing one thing, you want to go the other way. You need to be that pattern interrupt, because
Who would have thought that just a few years ago, a poor skinny kid from a little town in Canada who had failed at almost everything he touched would impact countless lives, would go on to create businesses generating tens of millions of dollars in annual revenue while traveling the
in
world.
2011, I had my first massive year. I did over $1 million in sales online.
Would be inspired to create in his own way, on his terms. All because he had an idea that no one else seen.
Mind blown when I quit my job the next day. I was like, if I can be doing this type of money from my laptop.
He held on to it when no one else would, believed in it, nurtured it, and that idea is growing each moment as it attracts the best and brightest, as it snowballs into something bigger anyone could have thought possible. All because someone believed. Here's the truth. Every day, every hour, every moment, something new is starting. A seed is being planted. An idea is being born.
Happy birthday, Kevin. Someone say happy birthday to
Right
you.
now, something bigger than any one person is about to begin. Something that can impact the world in a measurable way. The real question is, Is this day, is this moment your moment?
Hell yes.
Give it up, big Brisbane welcome to Kameron George.
Is this, oh, there we go. I was like, do I have to turn this thing on or off? Wow, Clint and Christy have been bragging about Brisbane for a while. They were saying that the energy was going to be different down here, and you guys delivered. That's awesome. It's been a bit of a hectic schedule. You guys, you Australians are pretty demanding. I need you to be in Sydney today, but I need you to stay up till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and we got a key party, and then I need you to get on a flight at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It's just one big day. I don't even know where I'm coming or I'm going. No, it's really good to be here, guys. What you guys have been doing up until now has been nothing short of incredible. It's just so interesting to see really the contrast that can happen in such a short period of time. It feels like just the other day that I was sitting down, I was showing Balaj something that I was like, look, here's something that you should do. Here's one little idea. And Clint's standing there with a glass of whiskey and big eyes. What are you talking about? I was like, well, here's how you scale to like 100 sales a day. And I was breaking down a strategy that I was inferring that Balaj should take on. Can you guys hear that? Yeah. Okay, I gotta find somewhere to stand on this thing. I thought I was gonna get to use the whole stage. I don't know if I'm gonna talk to you guys. I'm just kidding. So it was just so interesting because I was actually having a conversation with Clint, and I genuinely was. I was curious. I was like, I have no idea. Like, how are you gonna introduce me? What is the biggest thing? Because for Julian, it was something completely different. For Jang, it was something completely different. For all the large businesses and success stories that I've had the chance to work with, it's always a completely different perspective. And the reality is that there's almost 400 people in this room here today, and although you're all going to be listening to the exact same speech, to the exact same words coming out of my mouth, that every single one of you has a unique perspective, has a unique understanding, has different current experience that you're going through, and you're probably going to pick up and notice different little things as well. It's like I can sit there and I can read through an entire book front to back, and without skipping a beat, I could start it all over again and start reading through it again, and I would notice different paragraphs, different chapters that I could have sworn were not in that book previously. Like I didn't notice that one. So it's super interesting. But here's the thing. How many of you guys did your homework and actually watched that 3-hour webinar that I went through? Okay, not quite everybody.
I'm glad.
Damn it, guys. I will give you a little bit of context. So the reason that, I'm not going to go into it, but the reason that you are going to want to watch that is because it's almost like in order to understand where we are and where the industry is going, you do need to have like a little bit of a history lesson. And the reality is that if I had my daughter Kaya here with me, I can tell you that if there was only a few things that I could leave her with, I can assure you that it would not be one working successful campaign, one working sales funnel, one little tip, trick, hack, or strategy, because the reality is that those have a shelf life. They have a shelf life. And instead, it would be a key set of principles that I would want to leave her with. And I can remember it was Tony Robbins was interviewing Ray Dalio, who's one of the largest money managers in the world. He has billions of dollars under management in his fund. And he was asking him, like, if you couldn't leave your children anything, not a dollar, nothing, what is it that you leave them with? And to him, it was a key set of principles on the way that he would manage money, the way that he would manage finance. And so to me, hearing that, it really got me thinking, because who here understands that, again, tactics, strategies, hacks, they have a shelf life, but principles are timeless. They're the things that transcend industry. They're the things that transcend offer. They're the things that are truly applicable to absolutely anything. And when you can really take the time to learn and to focus on principles first, that's what really lays the core foundation, right? Like, how many of you guys are familiar with like the 80-20 principle as an example? Really good book by Perry Marshall, the 80-20 Sales and Marketing. I highly recommend you guys read that one. But I was sitting down with Perry and Banff, and we were talking about one of the stories inside of there, and the reality is that the 80-20 principle, the reason it's a principle is because it applies in everything. It's obvious in nature, and it's obvious in this room right now. One of the examples that he had given that we're not going to have the time to go through right now, I wish we could, unfortunately we only have so much time, is he was talking to me about one of the masterminds that he was putting on, and he just asked the people in the audience, like, what do you want to go through to prove the 80-20 principle right now? That it is a principle, that it's truth. And someone yelled out shoes. So they went through the room. How many people here have one pair of shoes? How many people have two? And it ended up that 2 people in the room had more pairs of shoes than the rest of the room combined. And that the 80-20 principle simply states that there's ratios, right? That sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 90-10, but the point is that the minority always outproduces the majority. And if you were to look at your business right now, you'll see that the minority of your leads have produced the majority of your revenue, that the minority of your customers have produced the majority of your revenue. And here's the thing though, and this is a total side tangent, just getting into the 80-20 principle, is that there's an 80-20 of 80-20. When you generate enough leads, when you generate enough customers, that all of a sudden, there's like an 80-20 of that 20%. That smaller amount, it goes to like the 2nd degree, to the 3rd degree, and it continues to grow. But the point being here is that what we really want to be able to focus on are principles. And to me, that's all I focus on, because the reality was I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and got lost in tactics, hacks, tricks, strategies, and it was really fucking painful. In there. You don't know what to look for, you don't know who to trust, you don't know what's going on. But anyway, so the video that was just played up here, I just want to thank Dakota for being able to put together stuff like that. It's always interesting to me to see it. I'm like, where the hell did you get that footage of me as a kid? Or like, I don't remember ever shooting that video on a mountain. Like, where the hell did you even find this stuff? And he has like this time capsule because he's been documenting this entire time for like the last 10 years. And there's this story in there that is the reason that Dakota's around here today, because it's just really a story that he wants to be able to tell and share. But the reason that sometimes you lose context. You hear like these like big numbers, how somebody's grown these multi-million-dollar businesses and done all these things, and it sounds like this astronomical, far out there thing that's very hard to be able to relate to. Who would agree? It's like, it's big. It's like you're looking at this completed building, you're like, fuck, where do I start? Is there a blueprint? I don't know, masonry. Does anyone know a good plumber? Like, how do you put something like this together? I know that it's possible, that it could be done, but Jesus, it's a lot of work went into something like that. And I understand that it allows you to kind of lose context. What I wanted to do with you guys here today, and I was thinking over the last couple of weeks, that's why I wanted you guys to be able to do the homework so I didn't have to go through that same presentation here with you, because I wanted to kind of take you back a little bit. How many of you guys, this is your first event? Quite a few of you. I wanted to take you back a little bit to September 2009 when I went to my first event. 10 years now since I've been in this space. So it's easy to look at somebody that's 10 years down the road that has not stopped moving, and for things to seem a little far. Will I ever catch up? Probably not, because I'm not going to stop moving. But to be able to learn and understand, how many of you guys might get some value out of me sharing some stories and insights about when I was in your seat?
Yeah.
So I can vividly remember this, and this is the hard point where it's like it feels like a lifetime ago. So you almost lose context. Where you're like, what did it really feel like? And I had to really kind of sit down and be able to meditate on this. And I can remember walking around. I just had my first few online commission checks. I was about $60,000 in debt. Everybody around me thought I was a fucking lunatic, including my parents, who I told for whatever reason that I was going to make $100,000 a month on the internet. And I sounded like I had lost my mind. There was no reason, there was no evidence around me outside of the research, information, and things that I had personally gone through to be able to understand not only how it was possible, but who I was working with, why I was able to trust them, and all the different things that had given me the level of certainty and clarity of what I was going to do. Because all I knew is that if somebody could do it, even if it was just one person, that it was possible, and that meant that I could do it too. I didn't care if anybody else did. I wasn't sitting in a room that had 400 people in it where the majority of them were actually getting results and seeing some sort of success. I was completely alone in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I was freaking out because I just knew what was possible and what I wanted to go do. And I decided that I was going to go to my very first event, that I wanted to be able to start getting around and rubbing shoulders with individuals who are actually making it happen. However, I'm sitting there hiding in the very back corner, nervous as all. I have long hair, I have a friggin' lip ring, and I look like an absolute bum. I'm like 21, 22 years old at the time. And the things that were being shared, it was interesting. There was a lot of good information. There was a lot of tactics. There was a lot of strategies. I took pages and pages of notes. But for those of you guys that did your homework and are aware of the 5 phases of technology, that very next week was when the Google slap happened. So although I was excited, although I was rubbing shoulders with individuals who I knew that, like, for the first time ever, it went from something where it was like this weird thing that I was looking at on the internet to actually getting the chance to meet somebody and realize, like, holy shit, this is real. These are real people getting real results, and they actually genuinely care. However, that next week, I realized it didn't matter how much they cared because their business wasn't working anymore. The only thing they knew how to do was to run Google AdWords. Their tactic, their strategy, the only way that they knew how to promote and run their business got taken away from them. And I spent the next 2 years basically figuring it out on my own. Absolutely on my own. I realized that I had the funnel, that I had an offer, that I had something that worked, but I had no idea how to promote it. And then I ended up running around, here I am over $60,000 in debt at the time, and I'm running around just trying everything. I'm writing like squiddy lenses, I'm going out and I'm buying the software that's allowing me to like spin and write articles so that I can rank them. I'm doing these like Twitter, this way that I'm using Twitter bots and building this entire like network of Twitter profiles and thousands of like, the things that I did and tried were ridiculous. And they were also a waste of fucking time. Because what people don't want to tell you is that, because in the marketing space especially, what are marketers good at? Marketing, selling, promoting, and the way that they're like creating a problem, because the reality was that they did have solutions for various things. However, it's like the latest hack to be able to automate your webinar profile, or the latest strategy to be able to do this, and there's always these like little hooks and tangents that were going off, and being the person that I was, I had to go touch every friggin' stove to make sure that it was hot, right? It's like wisdom comes from 2 places, mistakes and mentors. And I was the guy that had to walk around and I had to touch every single stove for myself to see what was going to work. And there was nobody that actually was just giving me a key core set of principles, some real keys that were going to actually bring some simplicity and clarity. And because of that, I ended up in this state of absolute overwhelm, spending close to $300,000 to $400,000 over the next couple of years, chasing everything before I finally realized a simple framework that I could play inside of, that allowed me to let go of all of the shit, that allowed me to walk away from coaches and mentors and training programs I was going through that I spent tens of thousands of dollars on, and allowed me to have absolute complete focus so that I could actually realize that there was really only 2 things that I needed to be doing to be able to make money in my business. And up until this moment, even though to most people on the outside it looked like I was successful, I was overwhelmed, I was scared, I was financially independent, but I had no financial security. I would have $20,000, $30,000 months, and then the very next month it was like questioning, like, was that just luck? Can I reproduce that? Was it just a sale came through from this? Because I wasn't tracking, I wasn't looking at where anything was coming from, and it felt a lot like gambling at the time, because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just running around and I was trying everything. I didn't have a sense of framework, and I didn't have an ability to be able to consistently, repeatedly reproduce the results that I was getting over and over and over again. And it wasn't until I really sat down and I created some simplicity in the framework for myself, and I started showing up in my own life as the mentor that I wish that I had. Someone that was giving me the type of framework and clarity. And I was thinking back 2 weeks ago, it was actually the homework that you guys did was the presentation I gave in Perth. They didn't get to hear any of this. And I was thinking back and I was like, well, over the last 10 years, what are some major keys, like let's say 4 keys, that if those were the only things that I had done, and there were things that I had done right, or even just looking back like things that I had done unintentionally, that were ultimately one of the major causes for my success, that would have like basically ensured that as long as I continued to show up consistently, would have allowed me to achieve the same results, and if I had been thinking and practicing this way from day one, probably would have allowed me to actually go further and create things bigger, in a bigger way, because I would have had a level of like focus and consistency. So for instance, there's actually only 2 things that you need to be doing on a daily basis that's going to make you money. Only 2. I'm going to get to those in here in a little bit, but before I do, how many of you guys would like if I kind of shared those 4 keys with you? Yeah. Okay, only some of you. I mean, I'm already distracted by this creaky stage. Just have to excuse me, I'm just getting over the flu. I came out here and I caught the Aussie plague. I've been in bed for like 2 weeks. I haven't gotten anything done outside of have a fever and speak on stage. You're very welcome. So, have you ever heard the analogy, like, or even this phrase at all, like if you ask somebody what time it is, and they give you like a blueprint or a map on how to build a watch? That's most of the marketing industry. You're looking for a solution, you have a problem, and everybody's got something that they're going to give you and sell you. And instead, what I want to do today in giving you these 4 keys is I just want to tell you what time it is. Is that okay? Yeah. See, if I had 4 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 3 sharpening my axe. I really would. It's about getting clarity, about understanding like the strategic intention behind what you're doing. Because if you're sitting there and you're overwhelmed and you're not clear, you don't have a 40,000-foot view of what you're doing and what you're working on, then you spend most of your time confused, scrolling around. How many of you guys have like realized you're in front of the computer for an hour or 2 and you're like, there's all these things that I could or should be doing, but I'm not sure which one to do, so I do none of them. Yeah, me too. It's when like I went to Facebook to check something, like, what the fuck am I here? I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. So here's the first key. Well, we got like 4 screens here, wow. It's a big deal out here, isn't it? So the very first thing that I realized that I had focused on was understanding, and this is not sexy, unless you like numbers, then it is. It's understanding the economics of the business. It's taking the time to understand the economics of the business. Now this right here, if Julian was introducing me, this would be the story that he'd be telling. Because this was the one thing that Julian learned that totally transformed his business for him. See, back in, I think it was 2013, after I had kind of taken on Dakota, those of you guys that don't know Dakota, I had very successful clients, people that I helped build 7-figure businesses before this, but Dakota was like the first person who I truly believe was like my student, the person that I really went, like he's like my brother, I went and I gave back to him, and I gave him everything. It wasn't just tactics, it wasn't just hacks, it wasn't just strategies, it wasn't just business principles, it was a piece of who I was, my thoughts, my beliefs, the tactics, the strategies, the things that I was doing. I went back and I shared with him in his very first year online at 19 years old. He went on and he created over 6 figures in profit, learning these principles. And when I went to go put on a mastermind, through the grapevine, a Hollywood camera crew caught wind of it, and they wanted to come out and be able to film the entire thing. Because the whole premise of the show was, if this 19-year-old kid can do this with this information, what could you do with it? And we had this ridiculous villa out in Thailand for about a month where I had different clients come out through this mastermind. And it ended up being kind of weird, like it's a reality show. They made us do like this panel and this framework, and it wasn't like, it kind of messed with the way that I wanted to be able to do my mastermind. But there's a moment where Julian comes up to me where they're making us do this like super awkward panel. And Julian says, I'm like, well, where are you looking to take your business? And he's like, if I could just do $10,000 a month, that would be amazing. Now at this moment, Julian's doing like a few $1,000s, technically full time, because he's a younger guy who knows how to live below his means. And he's technically already full-time in his business. He knew what he was targeting, he knew what he was doing. And so I grabbed him after this moment. Everybody's going out partying, going out drinking, going for dinner. And I grabbed Julian and I say to him, like, do you want to stay behind? I got something I want to talk to you about. I'm like, let's go over some things. And I pull Julian aside and I take him up into a room and I'm like, Julian, I want to start, the main thing that you're going to need to, we're all alone in a room in Thailand. Nobody's We're having an intimate conversation. That's what Julian will tell you guys. The story's a little different from him. But I tell him, I'm like, the number one thing that I need you to start to understand, and the only major distinction that's going to make the difference between where you are right now and making $10,000 a month is for you to actually understand your numbers, to understand the economics of the business. And again, and here's the thing, Julian was already in motion. The number one thing for most people when they're getting started is just moving. A lot of times they're just too scared to place an ad. They're too scared to generate a click. They're too scared to be able to make the post. And the reality is that until you do, nobody can give you really good advice. You can't adjust something that isn't in motion at all. So the good news here is that Julian was in motion. He was doing something. Whether he was generating results with it or not was absolutely irrelevant, because the reality was that he had data. He had information. He had something to work with so that I could actually help him. And it was the only way that I was actually able to teach him this lesson of understanding the economics in the business. And I asked Julian, I'm like, okay, so on average right now, what are you paying for a click? On average right now, what are you paying to generate a lead? On average right now, what are you paying to acquire a customer? Okay, you have this many customers. You generated X amount in revenue total. Okay, the total amount of revenue divided by the number of customers that you got. So your average lifetime customer value right now. Okay, that's great. And Julian the whole time's pacing around the room. He's like, man, we really got to figure this thing out. I'm going to throw this thing away. Like, what should we be doing different? I need to do something different. I'm like, this isn't working. We got to do something different. I'm like, Julian, like, just calm down. Like, you need to chill. I'm sitting there on the bed writing out and actually putting pen to paper and getting into the notes. And Julian said, and like Julian's freaking out the whole time. And I'm sitting there like it's taking time to add up and do the math. I'm doing this like longhand. I'm like, okay, month 1, month 2. And what I was doing is I was forecasting, just based on the numbers that he had and the marketing budget that he had, what could this look like over the next 12 months? And I'm about like 15, 20 minutes into this. I mean, I'm not the fastest person at doing math. I need a freaking calculator for everything. And the whole time, Julian's just like, man, we just got to start. We're going to get something new. I was like, Julian, just calm down. And I get to the point, and all of a sudden Julian sees me just like laugh, and I have this smile over my face, and he's just like, I know, we gotta throw it out, what am I gonna do different? I was like, Julian, no. If you did nothing different, nothing, absolutely zero, just kept doing what you're doing, if you never came to this mastermind and you just went home and you carried on your way, in 90 days from now, you will have your first $10,000 a month. He lacked the perspective and the understanding of what he was even already doing, because he didn't understand the economics of his business. And I'm just like, Julian, like this is what you're already doing. He was promoting an offer at the time. It was a $25 offer. He was acquiring customers for about like between $50 and $100. He's like, I'm losing money on every customer. I was like, no, you're not. I was like, I'm promoting the same offer right now, Julian. You don't even know it. Every one of those $25 customers to me, they're worth $1,600 on average over 60 to 90 days. To him, in his business at the time, they were worth around $600 or $700 because he wasn't working with his clients and his customers the same way that I was. But I didn't even get into any of that. I just wanted him to understand that, like, yes, you're paying this amount to acquire a customer, but when you understand the value of it, it's time to step on the gas. And I kind of had to make him aware of the opportunity that he had right then to actually do something with his campaign. However, we didn't even get into those details because Julian still needed to learn this lesson. And all I actually said to him, there's a lot of things we could have done. We had the house to ourselves, we had the ability to go into all sorts of different tactics and strategies and things that he could do, but all I said to Julian was, I was like, Julian, do you think you could run a split test on your landing page and like maybe be able to increase your conversions by like, I don't know, 2-3%? Do you think that that's doable for the next 60 days? It's like, yeah, I think I could do that. Okay. Do you think you could like maybe split test your ads, cut some of the losers, and get your click costs down by like, I don't know, 5-10 cents a click? Yeah, I think I could do that. That's all you're gonna focus on in the next 60 days, that's it. I just gave him some simple, clear instructions on just the next step. Not the millions of things he could have been doing, just the next step. And I left it at that. Julian hits me up exactly 60 days later. He just had his first $10,000 a month. What I'm curious about is how many of you guys right now are inches from gold, have a successful campaign, and don't even realize it? There was a moment in time in that exact same campaign that Julian was acquiring $25 customers for $35. Thought he was losing money. Didn't understand the economics of his business. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh my God. Can I have them? 30, I was willing to pay $6, $7, $8, $9, $1,000 for every single one of these customers because I knew that they were worth $1,500, $1,600 for me inside of 30, 60, 90 days. I understood the economics of the value to acquire a customer versus what that customer was actually worth to me. And to be able to take the time to understand that. Some of you guys are sitting here with customer values in the thousands of dollars, and you're too scared to spend a few $100s on ads to acquire them. If you have the ability with absolute certainty, knowing that on average a customer was worth X amount, would you not take the time to learn a skill, to be able to acquire them? I don't know if I could possibly stand still on stage. So this is one of the biggest things, is to start to take the time to understand this. Now and now here's one of the things, guys. You're not actually going to have to learn how to do this like longhand, although it's still kind of handy to do. We've actually built into the new platform a conversion calculator so that you can do 12 months of forecasting just by Here's my disclaimer, is because it's funny when you do stuff like this, is it's almost like doing it in a bubble, because you have to assume that you don't get better. When you put conversions like this and numbers in, they start to spit out some pretty astronomical things. If you assume that you just reinvested all of your money into marketing, you assume that you actually stayed committed to your marketing budget over 12 months, then you start to realize some of the numbers get a little scary. And then inside of the new discovery process, I had to use some scenarios, and I had to go like really bad numbers. Like if I were hitting numbers like that, it would be like, I mean, something had to happen. I had to like go disappearing for months on end for like, and accidentally target everything wrong. You guys are actually gonna have the ability to be able to start to have clarity on your numbers. And it's like, if you can go in every single month and just realize, this is what I'm doing, what am I on track for? If I continue at this pace, where am I going? And it's a really big deal. So before I get into some of these other specifics, I do just want to ask you guys this, and I want to make a clear distinction. How many of you guys are actually doing marketing online right now? Okay, less people than I thought. That's good though. How many of you guys are running, to make this distinction, how many of you guys are running like paid advertising and cold marketing? So that was most of the people that raised their hand. How many of you guys are doing warm marketing? Okay, way more people. So here's one of the main distinctions, is that warm marketing, when I did my very first 7-figure year, I had an email list of 20,000 people. I had a 20,000 person warm market. How many of you guys have a 20,000 person warm market? Nobody? Oh, we got a couple. You're getting there. But here's the thing, if that was my warm market and I stopped and I didn't do anything else with it, do you think I would have been able to go on and create the success and the numbers and the businesses that I have? Here's the thing to realize, is the way at which you promote to a warm market is the equivalent of like